What's cracking, YouTube? It's Matty B. Welcome back to the channel, and as always, thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Saturday night, we witnessed one of the all-time craziest finales in the 250 East class as we went into a winner-take-all national between Seth Hammaker, RJ Hampshire, and Tom Vialle. And I can't say enough about how crazy it was, even from the heat race all the way down to the checkered flag in the main event. It was just chaos. So I wanted to slow things down a little bit and kind of break down everybody's role in this main event, from Seth Hammaker to RJ Hampshire and Tom Vialle, and even Julian Beaumer from the West Coast, who threw himself in the mix. So we'll get deep into all those moves. We'll get into whether I think this was team tactics or whether there was more to it. And I'll give you guys my take on all this stuff, whether I agree with it, disagree with it. You know we're Team Seth Hammaker around here. But I'll give you guys my thoughts on everything, and my thoughts on these incidents have already pissed off one of these title contenders on social media. I'll get into that as well. But before I go into all of that, I got to give a huge thank you to my channel sponsors.
QuickMoto.com. Use my code on screen for 20% off of some graphics and more. Also, Sirius Studio. I'm now a partner in the company, so anything you buy on their website using my code MB820, a small slice of that goes to me. And lastly, my boy AJ is doing a Tesla Model 3 giveaway.
I've got all the info in my video description on how to enter, and check him out on X, YouTube, and Instagram at AJ Writes Crypto.
To start off, I want to briefly go over the point situation heading into the finale. We had Vialle with a 1-point lead over Hammaker, and then Hampshire 2 points further back. And the thing about this that I don't think a lot of people realize is Hampshire being 2 points behind Hammaker, passing him and going from third to second in the race, that would have only tied him for the championship. And Hammaker owned the tiebreaker, so even just passing Seth would have done nothing for RJ. So RJ kind of had to go for broke. I feel like the plan was to knock Seth down and try to put somebody between he and Seth. And remember, I said it was a winner-take-all heading into this one, but what I mean by that is you literally had to win the race. You couldn't just beat the other two if you were RJ, because he needed that 3-point gap in between first and second place. The 2-point gap wasn't quite enough to get it done. Now, the other two only had to beat their title rivals, but if you look at the point spread, from first place to second is 3 points, and then it's 2 points per position down to fifth, and then only 1 point per position all the way down through the rest of the field. So had RJ got out front and gotten himself in position to win, he could have controlled his own destiny, but since he was back in the 2-3-4 range, things got a little bit more complicated, and him putting himself in the hole all started with the heat race. And before I get into all this analysis, I just want to make it abundantly clear, I am very aware that I am nowhere near as good as any of these guys. There are many reasons why they have made it to the pinnacle of the sport, and I'm only talking about people that have made it to the pinnacle of the sport. But part of what I do around here is tell you what I think, so I've got no choice but to do that, so let's get into it. So starting with this heat race crash, RJ really did himself a massive disservice right off the bat. He was already in second, perfect position for a good gate pick for the main. And maybe this is just me, but sometimes I almost like being a gate pick behind my rival, because then I can pick my gate based on where they go. But I'm not a Supercross title contender, and Rick's a dog. He just wants to win no matter whether it's the heat, the main, practice on a Wednesday, or otherwise. And I hate to almost laugh a little bit, but it was very on brand for RJ to get caught up in TV wires. You can't just crash normal. Now let's get into the actual crash itself. We're headed into this long rhythm section, and he's dogging Hammaker towards the end of this heat race. And RJ, with the bad wrist that he's been dealing with this year, he said that he's running suspension a little bit softer than normal, so maybe he got a little bit further down the stroke than he's used to, caught a little pull to the left, and headed straight towards the top blocks, and an insane dismount at that. And my unfortunate thoughts on this one is this was just a really unnecessary, silly mistake from somebody who's going on 30 years old and has been in the 250 class since the Cold War. And let me be clear again, no hate towards anybody who's a veteran of the 250 class. These guys are making the big bucks, and they're well within the rules. So if anything, hate the game, not the player. But like I said earlier, he already had a really good gate pick for the main event on lock. There was only a couple laps left, and that's why I really feel like this was just not needed at all. He could have just settled in, taken the second, and got a good gate pick. But instead, he put himself behind the 8 ball before the main event gate even dropped, and this was very crucial because he needed 3 points on Hammaker to seal up the championship, and the difference between the win and second is 3 points. So the easiest thing RJ could have done is gone out and win, but this mistake right here made that very hard and almost impossible with the far outside gate pick. And it was a very short start straight, so it was going to make it even harder to pull anything off from the outside. And as you can see, for the main event, RJ was stuck out in the next county all the way wide, while Vialle and Hammaker were in perfect positions on the inside of the box. And NBC, I'm just joking, I'm just giving y'all a hard time, but if you need my help identifying riders before gate drop, hit my line, no choice. But main event gate drops, and of the 3 contenders, Hammaker by far puts himself in the best position heading into turn 1, and RJ, already stuck on the outside and kind of screwed, botches the jump, wheelies and sets it down and heads into the first corner, buried in mid-pack. And as they headed into turn 1, Deegan's a little bit out of frame with the hole shot, but Hammaker was right there trying to throw it in for the 2 spot. Vialle was a little bit more buried towards the inside, and then RJ's on the outside in no man's land. But moves like this are one of the reasons why Tom Vialle won this championship. He cuts it back, draws a line straight to the exit of the corner, and even gives Hammaker a little business while doing it. And just like that, after going into the first corner, 7th or 8th, he comes out smelling like a rose in 2nd. Now real quick, I'm going to touch on something that's going to come into play later in this video, but check out Seth Hammaker right there in the middle of the screen. Almost brushes up against Julien Beaumer, but it really doesn't look like he even touches him. And to me, it almost looks like Seth even tucked his elbow in a little bit to try not to run into JuJu. Now, if anybody ran into anybody here, if anything, I feel like Vialle pushed Hammaker way closer into Beaumer than Seth ever did on his own. And this is what really has me fired up, is apparently this was part of JuJu's motivation to give Seth the business and slam him, even though he wasn't part of the title chase, as I caught this in the Vital MX post-race interviews.
Honestly, I was kind of mad. He hit me in the first turn a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I'm not taking no shit no more, so.
Not taking no crap no more? Really? Since when? I mean, this is the same dude who hit Deegan with a threat on the podium that he had one coming, and what do you know? He has done nothing about it. And I almost hope that this is just an excuse and trying to cover up some team tactics, because I think I would have respected these moves a lot more had it actually been team tactics. Like, really, dude? Seth considers brushing up against you, and you decide to take it upon yourself to ruin his championship fight? I really hope JuJu finds himself in position to lock up a championship, and somebody takes it upon themselves to do what he just did to Seth. Sorry about it, but I want to see justice served. That was a classless move, and that was BS. And now, speaking of team tactics, this was an interesting dynamic because JuJu actually put himself in the position where he had to pass Tom Vialle. And you had to wonder, was he just going to sit behind him? Was he going to run block? What was he going to do there? And I feel like passing him was actually the best move because he had a lot more pace than Tom. So in theory, it would have maybe been better for Tom to have a rabbit to chase and maybe try to follow Tom around and up his own pace. And it looked like he may have taken a few laps to consider it, but he made a super clean move right up the inside of Tom as you see Tom take a look back to try to figure out who's next. And next up to make the Z-Pass on Vialle was Seth Hammaker, the title rival. Throws it in a little bit, shows him a wheel in this 90. And remember, between Seth and Vialle, it was only 1 point, so whoever finished ahead of the other was going to be the champion. And this was the best place to be setting up this pass because everybody was having to go a little wide in the corner to try to get a little run to step up over that tabletop. And that was textbook. It was aggressive, but it wasn't anything egregious. He put it in there on Vialle, but he didn't blow him off the track, didn't take himself out, made the move, and that right there is how it's done. And while all this is going on with Vialle and Hammaker, where the hell is RJ? Dude was back around the 10th spot at the end of lap 1, and he straight up marched his way through the field, made every move he needed to make, and this was looking like it could have turned into the championship ride of all championship rides after the day he had the bad start and everything. By about the midway point of the race, he had made his way onto the back of Vialle, and you had to wonder if he was going to try to rough up Tom because there was a 3-point difference between RJ and Tom, so he needed a couple spots in between them, but unfortunately for RJ, Tom clanked the rhythm, and it made it way too easy for RJ to just jump straight on past. Gave him a little brake check at the end of the rhythm, but I feel like he saw that there was Julien and Seth still ahead of him. Tom wasn't making much progress, and I feel like at this point, RJ probably had faith that he was going to be able to catch those next 2 guys, put more riders in between he and Tom, and he really wouldn't even have to worry about Vialle after he made that pass. Now, here's where Julien Beaumer comes into the picture. All day, he had been really fast, ran down Deegan in the heat race, but he didn't quite seem to have the same pace in the main event as Seth Hammaker ran him down pretty quick. JuJu takes a look over, and Seth makes a super clean pass. Once again, no contact, but I guess JuJu may see it differently. And this is the move I really don't like. After getting ran down and passed clean, JuJu goes for the dive bomb on Hammaker. Seth loses an arm. I have no idea how he didn't crash. And we're not in JuJu's head, right? So we don't really know exactly all that's going on. Like I said earlier, he was butthurt about Seth not even touching him in the first turn. And then, of course, there's the motivation to try to help KTM get a championship. So I'm not even going to say whether I blame him or not, but I am absolutely no longer a fan of JuJu. I feel like that was a classless move. The motivation that he says he had for the move is total BS. And it really threw a wrench in the championship that had absolutely nothing to do with two Jews. Now, a lap or two later, Seth is going for the exact same move on JuJu, but the only problem with this is the move slows both of them down, and RJ has been creeping his way into the picture lap after lap, and now he's right there within striking distance. And I'm not really thrilled on this either. I feel like this is what makes me think there's team tactics involved, because JuJu takes a look back, sees it's RJ, looks back again, and could not pull any further out of the way. And I feel like part of the motivation for battling Seth that hard could have been a podium bonus difference, but going from third on the box to fourth off the box, that makes it to where you only make your AMA purse money for the night, so that motivation doesn't really make sense to me. And I know JuJu's on a KTM and RJ's on a Husky, but they're both part of the KTM group. And I feel like KTM takes the team tactics to another level. At the end of the day, they want to win, and you got to respect that, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have to like it. You know, even during Ryan Dungey's last championship at Vegas 2017, Tomac was bunching him up, and Dungey was safe. He had a whole crew of KTMs and Husqvarnas backed up behind him that refused to pass him. And I'm really not a fan of that. I like to just see the racing play out. But more power to KTM for their investment into the sport, and if there were any gas riders that were healthy in the 250 class, you can bet your ass they would have been out there for support as well. Sorry y'all, I can't show video of the pass because the video got blocked globally due to the copyright nationals, so we're just going to have to go with some slideshow style action, no choice. But back to the action on track, all of that commotion allowed RJ to get right onto the back of Hammaker with still a few minutes to go, and I was yelling at my TV right about this time. I knew it was coming. I was yelling at Seth to let him go, and what do you know, RJ goes in there and levels both of them. And this is exactly what I was scared of happening, because RJ and Seth can be loose units while Tom is a little more steady. And once again, the dude is at the right place at the right time to pick up the pieces and go right by the down machines of RJ and Hammaker and put himself right back into control of the championship. Now, as far as the move itself, I feel like for the most part, it was just very rushed and not calculated at all. And this is just what Rick does. I would venture to say he has more heart than anybody else out there. He sends it harder than anybody else out there. And unfortunately, his send contributed to the demise of Seth Hammaker as well. And remember what we talked about at the beginning of the video. I totally get his motivation behind this, because he couldn't just beat Seth by one spot. He had to put somebody in between himself and Seth in order to secure the championship. And RJ's going for broke. I predicted it. He was either going to win the title or get third in points. And just imagine, had he been able to pull this move off successfully and gotten the championship done, that would have been an unbelievable championship move and comeback ride for what would have been an unbelievably well-deserved championship. But the easy rule of thumb is, whenever both of you guys go down, it was usually a bad move. And even if it had worked and Seth would have gone down, I probably still would have been pissed in the moment because Seth's my guy. But I really wouldn't have had much bad to say about the move because it's for a championship. And had he got it done, it would have been worth it. But unfortunately, it just took both of them out and gave it to Pepe Le Pew. RJ kind of has a history of pulling this move. Remember in the mud with Jet Lawrence? He sent it in so hard, I think he's still sliding, trying to stop for the corner. Cleans out himself and Jet. And really, I don't think it's anything too malicious. RJ's not a bad guy. It's really just over-aggression and kind of not thinking and just doing stupid moves. But while you're racing dirt bikes, there is so much going on so fast, it's hard to make a thought-out decision when everything's coming at you at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And honestly, I get it. I mean, I make bad decisions racing for 150% payback at the local Chicken Licks Raceway. It happens. Lapses in judgment are part of life. It's all about how you learn from them and what you do to try to correct course. So in summary, I really can't blame RJ for going for the move. He wanted the championship. It was just rushed and horrible execution. Maybe if he would have waited a little longer, maybe even a few more turns, he could have thought it out a little better and really made that pass stick. But that's not what RJ's about. He's send now, think later, no choice. And I've always been an RJ fan. The dude has more heart than anybody out there. I grew up racing with him. I love what he's about. He's a hard worker and he's made it happen. But I was very upset that he cost Hammaker the championship. That's my boy, so I tweeted a little bit of frustration after the race. And to my surprise, RJ has responded to me and told me not to be that guy. All I said was, way to go, RJ. Of course I'm going to be pissed. What do you mean, RJ? Don't show emotion? Don't have an opinion? I mean, for as much of a badass as RJ is, it seems a little bit sensitive for him to be butthurt over way to go and some emojis. And another funny part about it is about an hour before he responded to me, I tweeted this, trying to give him full props. I believe in credit where it's due, and the dude definitely deserves a lot of credit for sticking it out this season. Now, this is the best thing that's happened to my Twitter since I've had it, so I appreciate it, RJ. Thank you for responding to me, but I don't understand at all. If you look at his account, he's hardly responded to anybody in the last year, so I must have somehow struck a nerve here. And even that doesn't really make any sense because the entire real media talks about RJ all the time. You know, RJ gonna RJ, the RJ experience. I was listening to the Racer X review pod this morning, and they said a whole lot more than way to go RJ. So I'm expecting his tweets for all of them to not be that guy. And if having opinions and emotions is being that guy, then expect me to continue being that guy for as long as I'm around. That's what I do around here. I say what I think, and if you don't like it, this is probably where Deegan would say to suck it, but really, if you aren't paying my bills and if you don't like it, just don't watch. It's that simple. But with all that being said, Tom Vialle is the champ again. I don't mean this in a bad way at all, but it's just the truth. By far, the worst two-time champion Supercross rider we've ever had. But how much does that say about how good of a racer he is, his racecraft, his consistency, his ability to be there every weekend, and his ability to make the right moves when it counts? And when I say he's the worst two-time Supercross champ we've ever had, I really don't mean that out of disrespect. I'm really just trying to highlight all the other things that he has in his arsenal and all the other tools that he used to become a two-time champ in a highly competitive 250E series. And speaking of the 250E series, this was a banger. Give me a series like this every year. So many contenders, so many people had mistakes. Tom had the last in the mud, Seth had the food poisoning, RJ went RJ a few times. We had Kitchen and Anstey as contenders early that went out with injury. And on the flip side, we had Austin Forkner finish an entire season. Wasn't much of a factor, but I am just so happy to see the guy make it to the end of the year, build some momentum, and maybe we'll see the real Austin Forkner back next year. But what a series. It was insane. I had a lot of fun watching it and a lot of fun talking about it. Make sure you guys let me know in the comments what you think, what you agree with, what you disagree with. If my Seth Hammaker bias is shining through too hard, if you want to hate on me or anything in between, I'm here for it. I appreciate y'all tuning in, and I'll catch y'all next time.